Hello, Fritz.
Hello, Alexandra.
And today we are going to talk about CERN.
Oh, great, because it's a very controversial subject. And if you don't mind a little poetry, we should be concerned about CERN.
Definitely. Yeah. And you have been studied the subject more like about CERN. And
Yes, I have studied CERN for many years, and I have written a number of articles about it, and I've been really slow to draw conclusions, but I do believe that I have some very interesting things to share with the listeners that'll make it worth their time. And whenever you feel comfortable, like you've done in the past, to just kind of give me the floor, I'll present things for them.
please, I'm giving you the floor.
You're so generous. Thank you, Alexandra, and hello to all you listeners out there. I really think that this is an important subject, and it's a subject that Alexandra's taken a stand on and gotten herself into trouble. We're a lot of us are sorry about that. I'm not making light of that because she's paying a price. But anyway, when we discuss CERN, it overlaps with a lot of different subjects. It overlaps with standard physics, quantum physics, superstring theory, astronomy, parallel universes, multiverses, extra dimensions. It overlaps with NASA. It overlaps with the Illuminati and their plans, and stargates and portals, and biblical prophecy, the Mandela effect. And since our listeners out there may or may not know about these subjects, I'm going to discuss them to some degree. Again, like the last time we did an interview together, I'm going to try to provide the listener with things on different levels, some for the basic listener who's just come into the subject, and some for those who've been studying it for a long time who want some really deep new secrets. So it even might even touch on some other subjects. I don't know that I'll get into crystal skulls or anything, but why, dear listener, do I qualify to weigh in on this controversial subject? Well, I have a science engineering background. First, when I was at West Point, I was studying engineering. I've got associate of science degree, and my father and his generation all became engineers. And so I have enough science to understand the issues. In college, I studied college level differential equations, which is theoretical calculus. I studied college level astronomy, physics, and then I have also received information that relates to the subject from reliable informants, people that were associated with the Illuminati that passed on information to help me. So the third reason why I possibly am qualified to say something and weigh in on this subject is because as an awake individual, just like Alexandra, I've been watching and researching what's going on for many years, and sorting information on CERN, and giving and writing articles that the mainstream prostitutes don't give you. So anyway, that's some information. That's the overlap of subjects that we're going to be dealing with. Now, how do I want to teach or present this information to you? Well, first I want you to get the official storyline of CERN, and then I want to discuss some of the accepted physics and quantum physics that are involved in all of this. And then finally, thirdly, I want to get to my clues that cause me to have concerns and suspicions. Some of these clues will be similar to what Alexandra has experienced. Excuse me, my nose itched just there for a minute. But my approach is to give us a solid foundation first, turns off of. So sometimes people like Alexandra and myself, we've jumped through a lot of hoops and we finally come to conclusions. And if you just throw those conclusions in people's face, they haven't jumped through the same mental hoops, and it's disconcerting. So let's discuss what is the official storyline about CERN. For over 50 years, there's been a consortium of nations, mostly Europeans, and they have built particle accelerators, an anti-proton deaccelerator, and a proton synchrotron. And that synchrotron they started building in 1959. So the largest of their particle accelerators has an acronym LHC, which stands for Large Hadron Collider. And what they're doing is, and by the way, this LHC is the world's most powerful machine, and interrupting my train of thought as to what they're doing with it, just think of what they've done to create it. They initially spent 4.4 billion, the equivalent of 4.4 billion US dollars to build it. And then it has 16.656 miles of tunneling in basically a circular configuration. And this tunnel was built on the average of 330 feet. Now, yes, dear listener, I don't keep these facts in my head. I had to refresh my memory from articles that I wrote about these statistics. But one thing that did stick in my mind was that they put 9,300 large magnets that these magnets are propelling the subatomic particles down this tunnel approximately the speed of light. And then they supercool this tunnel down to almost 0 degrees and create a vacuum in it. So they get these particles really going fast so they can collide them. But here's a little bit more information, because the way they advertise CERN is a little misleading. As Alexandra and I both know, really who's behind this is the Illuminati, but that's like probably a lot more than our average listener is going to be able to deal with hearing to start with. But they advertise this as European, but Israel is a full-fledged member, and 94 American universities, U.S. universities, are participating in CERN, and there are well over the scientists are from over 100 nations are represented working at CERN. So this is really a global effort. It's not a European effort, but the Europeans are in charge to some degree. And then they have India, Russia, US, Japan. They're given the title observer nations, although like I've pointed out, they're doing a lot more than observing. So they're not totally being representing what's going on. Even they're not even representing what's going on fully. So this LHC is taking subatomic particles, putting them at near the speed of light and crashing them into each other, because by doing that, they create subatomic particles that they study. That's the cover story of that's the official cover story of what's going on there. Now, CERN officials have said publicly said that one of their goals is to punch through to other dimensions. Another goal that they have publicly talked about is they are looking for evidence of the rainbow gravity theory. Now, most of our listeners are not going to know what in the world the rainbow gravity theory is. It came out in 2004, and it goes like this. The force of gravity bends light. Okay, now, according to standard physics, it bends all light in the same fashion. But according to the rainbow gravity theory, it interacts on different colors, which colors are simply different wavelengths. It interacts on the different wavelengths with different strength. So you don't see this until you get to a strong gravity field like a black hole. So according to the theory, if you were to approach a black hole, you would see the light being pulled into the black hole separated in like a prism separates things. Of course, the closest known black hole to us is at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, our galaxy, and that's way too far away for us to observe this phenomenon. So what this large hadron collider is trying to do experiments where they can prove the rainbow gravity theory. Why do they want to do that? Because if they can prove that, then it supports the idea that there was no origin to the universe. The universe has always been there. And they don't like to have the idea that there was an origin, because that means something created it. And if you read Stephen Hawking's book, Brief History of All Time, which I read when it came out in the when it came out in the late 1980s, I read his book, and we'll talk more about Stephen Hawking later, but his book used the word God. He said that there were so many specific particulars involved in creating the universe as it is, that only an intelligent creator could have created it. Now, I know, and a lot of listeners probably know, Stephen Hawking is officially an atheist. So don't all you Christians up there jump up and down and think that he gave his soul to Christ or anything. It didn't work that way. So anyway, but we can pray, we can hope, because he's come close. He's certainly gone in the right direction towards understanding, but it's hard for these scientists to take that final jump and admit that there's a God in control of things. So let's discuss what's accepted physics. Those of you who go to college and you watch things on television where they do shows that are explaining nature and stuff, you're going to learn some of this. You're going to learn that with every force in nature, there's a particle associated with it. So for instance, photons are associated with light and electromagnetism. Now, they've over my lifetime, even before my lifetime, they've been theorizing that this particle existed and that particle existed. And so they theorized these things and then they discovered them. So like, for instance, I remember, because I was interested in science back in 1964, that they announced that they theorized that quarks existed. And then CERN discovered a pentaquark. So, this is the way things have been going. They've been discovering some of these theoretical particles. Antimatter, that's something we need to discuss because it involves CERN. What is antimatter? Antimatter is sort of the volatile opposite of matter, okay? And it's created by radioactive decay. It's also being created by CERN, and they're trapping these tiny antimatter particles, and they're holding them in something called a pinning trap. Okay, so when you get into the controversy about CERN, you're going to hear a lot of concerns about them holding on to antimatter and creating antimatter. Now, sometimes when I listen to people that are bashing CERN, they get things mixed up because they don't understand dark matter is something totally different than antimatter. Dark matter is theorized to make up 80% of the matter in the universe, and they had to come up with the concept of dark matter because there's these anomalous velocities of stars and spiral galaxies like our Milky Way, and they couldn't explain it with what they were seeing, so they figured that there's something there that they're not seeing. Okay, but one thing about dark matter is not only is it hidden, but it's benign. It's not something dangerous like antimatter. Antimatter, if you got much of it, is very explosive. So another thing that they've been dealing with at CERN is the Higgs field. Now, what's the Higgs field? This was something that was theory at one time, but now, because it's an invisible energy field throughout the universe, but they pretty well proved it because they discovered the Higgs boson, which is a particle with 126 times the mass of a proton, which establishes, yes, there is this Higgs field that's energizing things. So related to that is our universe appears to be right on the edge, the cutting edge between stability and instability. And that relates to a lot of people's concerns about what CERN is doing. We'll get to that after a little while. So superstring theory in quantum physics has postulated that there are at least 10 dimensions for things to make sense in what they're seeing at the quantum level. Their theory, Alexandra, says that there's at least, and they've added more dimensions. I mean, you know, after 10, it was 11, 20, 30. There's more dimensions, but there's a minimum of 10 dimensions. And you're familiar with the first three. If you've done carpentry, I was a carpenter for 3 years. We used those 3 dimensions, length, width, and breadth, all the time when you're a carpenter. As a draftsman, which I've also been, and a mathematician, you use X, Y, and Z axes, you know. So this is your 3 dimensions that we're working with in our reality. That's what our senses perceive. But according to superstring theory of quantum mechanics, our senses are not picking up all these other dimensions, these other dimensions. So the 4th dimension, you do realize what it is. That's time, which is there's a space-time dimension. And then the 5th dimension is a world that initially had the same conditions, universe that had the same initial conditions as ours, which is just slightly different. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, later, not exactly a minute, but towards the end, I'm going to talk about where that might fit into what's going on. And then the 6th dimension, it's a plane of possible worlds. If you are able to control the 5th and the 6th dimensions, then you can do time travel because they're above the dimension of time. And then the 7th dimension is a world of different initial conditions than what our world was. 8th dimension is infinities of different initial conditions. 9th is all the universal possible histories. And the 10th dimension is all the imaginable possible scenarios of existence. So those are their 10 dimensions. And so this is where I wanted to show my first illustration, Alexandra, is the idea, the concept of more than 4 dimensions is mind-blowing. So there's something that's drawn. It's the Calabi-Yau manifold, and it illustrates the different dimensions. And what they theorize is that one little tiny little spot or segment of this whole thing would illustrate where we're at, stuck in a 3-dimensional world when there's many more dimensions around things. I don't know if hopefully that's visible.
It's very well visible.
Okay, so that little spot or segment in that manifold is called a brane, not brain like BRAIN, but BRANE. That's what I put up here at the top. Brain equals a part, and that's the brain theory. But how did science in the Western civilization develop? Well, with the Greeks, and then later the Greek scientists, and then later the European scientists that were Christians, they believed that there was a God that had created an orderly world. That's where the Greeks came up with sacred geometry. There were math laws, physics laws. God had established these laws of nature, and they discovered all these constants. And that's what, when you go to physics and take physics, you learn all these constants. So there's all these. So the only thing that gave them the drive to research and discover things is they thought there was something constant to discover. If it was all chaos, then there wouldn't have been any reason to. But these higher dimensions that we were talking about here, they would be chaotic, So life as we know it wouldn't be supported in those upper dimensions. So, it's conceivable that these upper dimensions might be like hell, where life existed, but it wasn't real. When I say that, those who know math realize that there's an imaginary number system. Imaginary numbers, they exist, but they're not real, So these chaotic dimensions might have life forms that would like to attach themselves to our orderly universe. So now I've covered, and that went pretty quickly. So this is working out really well. I wanted to go quickly, so it's gone real quickly. I'm hoping that the listener is able to assimilate this and enjoy the conversation without getting bored. And so now that we've talked about what CERN is connected to, the official story about CERN, and the accepted physics and quantum physics, let's get into why I'm concerned about CERN. My little poetry there. I'm going to discuss, before I get into CERN, a scriptural principle that was given a Latin name. It was given the name, Alexandra, Felix culpa, which most of my listeners, I'm convinced very few listeners have heard of Felix culpa. What is Felix culpa? It's the idea that God judged that it would be better to bring good out of evil than not to permit evil to exist. So according to the Christian Bible, you see some examples of that. You see, he creates paradise, but he allows evil to come in and destroy paradise, but then he's going to recreate paradise when he reigns evil in and transforms it into good. Or like in the life of Christ, here was a good man who was helping humanity, but he gets crucified. So you see in the crucifixion and resurrection that this whole principle of Felix culpa comes in, and that is God allows evil because it's better to allow evil, because in the end he's going to bring good out of it. So where I'm going with all this is when I state my concerns, dear listener, I'm not trying to fear monger with fear porn. I'm not trying to, keep you up all night or something where you can't sleep and you're terrified of life. There's some serious concerns here, but I'm wanting to put them into a perspective that you realize that even though we have legitimate concerns, we have legitimate reasons for hope too. So we don't want to just be, we don't want to throw out hope. That's like throwing out the baby with the bathwater, I guess. Okay, my first concern about CERN is we're looking at some of these European nations, and Alexandra knows this firsthand because she lives in Europe. You look at Greece, Spain, Italy, these countries are bankrupt. The other ones are just barely above bankruptcy, and yet all these countries are contributing billions of dollars every year. They're contributing, and the people that are in control of the purse strings, I mean, when I look at their morals, they remind me of someone like Judas. I mean, the people that are leading these countries do not have humanity's best interest at heart. So why would they want to spend billions of dollars finding out if a quark existed? I mean, come on. Is it really, does the Higgs boson really mean that much to these people? They don't even know what it is, most of them. They're politicians, But so why are they spending all this money, and what is going on behind all of this money? Well, one of the things that I've discovered in my research of the elite is they consistently have these banner issues, like NASA is going to do space research, but then behind that false front, behind that occult front, they do all these other agendas. So like one day I was looking in the shelves. I'm a researcher. I browse the shelves. So it's something that you wouldn't find on the internet. You're not going to find in the card catalog. But I came across this large, like encyclopedic type reference book that showed all of the programs NASA had that last year. Oh my goodness, Alexandra. This thing was page after page. They had a little blurb of each program. Page after page. This was hundreds of pages of these research type programs that NASA was doing. I mean, how to create an alien language, how to do mind control, how to do all this stuff. I mean, tangentially related, I guess, to space travel, but it wasn't, what the news is giving us is, oh, NASA, they're putting up a Mercury spacecraft, or that we're sending a satellite up into space to research this or something, or you don't get a clue that they're involved with all this other stuff. And I'm convinced, from what I know from insiders, there's even a lot more going on besides what was in that book. They're running all kinds of agendas. So when you see these big, large sums of money, it should raise suspicions. What is going on there? Do we have a full accountability? What is going on with all these large sums of money? So, that's my first concern. I haven't heard other people express that exactly that way, but have you wondered too, Alexandra, what they're doing with all their large sums of money?
Well, I have wondered, and I have searched what is Hoover Dam, CERN-Hoover Dam attack, and so, and it's also another aspect. They are above law. They have immunity. They have fixed immunity for themselves. So it should raise some concerns too. What are they up to? Why are they immune against punishment, legal punishment? So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. So Alexandra is vindicating me a little bit there, that it's suspicious. it should cause people to wonder what's going on with these billions of dollars that they're spending, especially when supposedly Europe is on the verge of being bankrupt, and you have Deutsche Bank and all these other large banks that are in a crisis mode. Okay, my next concern goes back to what I was saying, that right there on that cutting edge, according to physics, the universe is right there between instability and stability. And so if the Higgs field that they've discovered changes its energy state, which is called a quantum fluctuation, it's going to create quantum tunneling between this one place and another energy level in the vacuums between the galaxies. And everyone who knows what the heck that all means is convinced it will destroy our universe. That's what it will collapse our universe. That's what Stephen Hawking, the world's top theoretical astronomer, cosmologist, he's been repeatedly warning about that. And if you are interested in this, watch his lecture, Starmus, where he's warning that the God particle that CERN is playing with could wipe out the universe. What he describes CERN doing is like opening a Pandora's box. And we're going to get into some other ways that they may be opening Pandora's box. But that's one right there, is just creating a quantum fluctuation where the universe gets destroyed. Oh, how lovely. And, it's like, they just like merrily go on their way like, oh, well, this is no concern. I mean, oh, yeah, well, okay, Stephen Hawking said that, big deal. I mean, it's just like there's a disconnect here somewhere, The world's greatest theoretical astronomer is giving this warning, and a few others have also. And then they're just like, oh, well, this is nothing. I mean, do you see a disconnect here, people? I do. So then the third area of concerns that I have is the information that I've gotten relative to the Illuminati. Now, in 1992, I had what I'd call a reliable informant. I knew this person, and I knew I could rely on this person's information. And they told me that when they were in the Illuminati, they were told in meetings that the Illuminati was going to get into quantum physics. Now, when this person told me this, it went right over my head, because quantum physics? Why? Why would the Illuminati be interested in quarks and photons and all these little mesons and all these little particles? I mean, what is that? But then I had another reliable informant that had been associated with the Illuminati, and he told me, Fritz, do not talk about this because they will kill to keep the secret. But you know me, I seem to not be capable of keeping these kind of secrets, and I'm still, Lord willing, I'm still here with us, even though Alexandra and I have shared our share of persecution. It's not like they've just ignored us. Yeah, we rattled a few people, but hey, we're concerned about life here on Earth. One thing that I really, really am in favor of is life. I keep choosing life. And this world system is so fixed on death. But anyway, he said that the Illuminati scientists had created a quantum phone, which actually went back in time, so that before you asked the question, you heard the answer. And it was so counterintuitive to the scientists who built it, even though they knew what they were headed towards. They couldn't wrap their minds around what they had invented. So what we're talking about, if that's true, is they have punched through in some way past that fifth and sixth dimension. Okay, so that hold that in mind. Now, my related to this, and those who are awake realize that the mass media is totally controlled by the Illuminati and their organizations. One of the organizations, the Illuminati controls two of them, is MI6 and the CIA. And MI6 and the CIA give directions and orders and stories to the news media every day. You know, they're just regurgitating what they're being told. That's why you can turn on television to the three different main news outlets, and they're weighting all of their stories exactly the same. They're giving the same stories, the same storyline for each story. I mean, it's all control, people. Wake up, you know, break out of the matrix, people. So anyway, the Illuminati's mass media, how are they reporting on CERN? They don't give us details. They give us all this fluff. They're really light on real facts. And when I see the news media treating a subject like CERN with kid gloves and not giving us the real facts, that raises red flags. Okay, the Illuminati don't want us to really look at what's going on there, right? That's pretty interesting. And then there's been some whistleblowers that did want to tell us what was going on. And unfortunately, before they really got to tell what they wanted to tell about CERN, they got killed or suicided. And that right there raises big red flags to me. You know, what are they afraid of these whistleblowers telling us? So anyway, those are some of the clues that are related to the Illuminati that have caused me concerns. And then the next thing is just so bizarre that for a couple years, I just listened to people talk about it. I was just like, yeah, right. You know, it sounded like that was too much for me. And I'm a researcher that gets into, you know, some really strange stuff. But it was the Mandela effect. It was named because there was a certain date that people believed and remembered that Nelson Mandela had died on. And then that date changed in history, but they remembered the real date. Okay, well, when I heard about the Mandela effect, I was like, this is bizarre. It was hard for me to believe. And then one day, one of my Christian brothers sent me a whole long list of the Mandela effect things. And I read through and I go, oh my, there really is something there to this. There really is. I mean, when I became a Christian, I initially joined an independent conservative Baptist church that preached from the King James Bible. Okay, this has relevance to this one Mandela effect. Because I remember what they preached. They preached from Matthew 9:17 that you couldn't put new wine in old wineskins. And that made sense. But now the Bibles, instead of using the term wineskins, they say bottles. That doesn't even make sense. You can't put new wine into an old bottle? Sure you could. You could wash it up and recap it. I mean, that's been done plenty of times. People that like the Amish, I used to be Amish, you know, and they made their own wine. All they had to do was sterilize a bottle and recap it. Yeah, you can use an old bottle. It doesn't even make sense. That quote from Christ doesn't even make sense. But I know what was preached. It was wineskins. It wasn't bottles. And we were using the King James. Now the King James Bible, most of them, a few of them haven't changed. That's weird too. So I actually have a Bible that didn't change. I don't know what that's all about. You remember Star Wars, and the actor James Earl Jones, he says, Luke, I am your father. Now that's changed. Now the movie and everything says, no, I'm your father. But people remember what he said. And he specifically came back and reconfirmed No, what he said is, Luke, I am your father. But that's been changed. And I remember watching Forrest Gump. I've only seen the movie like 5 times. I remember Forrest Gump said, life is like a box of chocolates. I know that that's what was said. Now it's changed. Life was like a box of chocolates. No, it wasn't life was like a box of chocolates. Life is a box of chocolates. It's changed. Okay, I remember Snow White. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Now it's magic mirror. What? I remember the names of people. I remember Rod Sterling. There was a couple years there in my life where I watched a lot of television. I know it was Rod Sterling. Now the name's changed. I remember watching Desi Arnaz. Now the name's changed. Desi Arnaz. You know, I remember watching Superman, Christopher Reeve. Reeves. Now it's changed to Christopher Reeve. You know, these are things I know, and I don't know how many hundreds of these things. So what has this got to do with CERN? Some people think that when they changed the mass of a proton, that they shifted things where we just slightly shifted and we went into a parallel universe just slightly parallel to ours. I don't know what happened, but that fifth dimension is a world that's very similar to ours because it had an origin that was the same origin as ours according to scientific theory. So it's quite possible that we shifted slightly. I mean, I don't know. What other explanation do we have for this Mandela effect? According to the Bible, biblical prophecy, the end times are going to be that the Antichrist was going to come with mass deceptions of all kinds. Well, we definitely live in an era of mass deceptions. I mean, we live in a matrix where it's just one lie after another. And let's see. Okay, so there's spiritual concerns here too. My spiritual concerns, and this is where you can jump in and help me because you've been watching American television, Alexandra, and you've seen a lot of things that they show on there. And, you know, when it pertains to CERN, I mean, they got Enochian magic symbols in CERN. What is Enochian magic? It's used to conjure demons. It was created by Sir John Dee, who was the chief mathematician / magician for Elizabeth I in England. He created Enochian magic to conjure up demons, and the demon he conjured up that gave him information looks like what we call the small grays, the small gray aliens. So could you show us some of the stuff and talk about that for us, please?
Oh, well, I have some pictures that I have found now in the morning, which is a representation of CERN, and it's for example, in advertisements. So there's a picture of it's a Cartier commercial that is actually about Hoover Dam, CERN-Hoover Dam attack, and it's from Third Eagle Books that have looked at this Cartier commercial, and he didn't know that it's the commercial is really about CERN-Hoover Dam attack, but he understands that it's something very, very, very wrong with this commercial what they are showing. And it's so if one looks at his video and put together than what Hoover Dam, CERN-Hoover Dam, what Illuminati channel like killer said about it and put this information together. It maybe you understand that they many times the Illuminati announce what they are planning, their false flags, and this is a really big event. And what in the YouTube channel Like Killers, which is they are saying that they are Illuminati, that they are students of Vatican and Illuminati, and I believe really that they are working for the head of Illuminati, William Van Down. So if you look at their video, Top Secret Illuminati Symbols, there you have exactly explain what they are saying about Swiss CERN is making a bomb with conserved energy. This bomb will be dropped into Hoover Dam waters in USA. This dam waters will be at that time filled with electricity before the bomb will touch the surface. This electromagnetic reaction will open a portal which leads to a different dimension. You should know that different dimension is not a different universe, but a different place in this universe connected with portal, which is in fact a shortcut to this place. And what they mean, it's this shortcut from Earth is to the planet Saturn. And what in another video you can see these reversals that they are talking about are taken from a news report about the CERN Large Hadron Collider, which was designed to be a reptilian stargate. I will show a Shiva picture, Shiva that they have there in CERN. And I have many other pictures which are from the Super Bowl, from Eurovision MTV contest, that they are explaining for us about CERN, and I can show it maybe in the end, because here is Rihanna. She was, I believe, in either United Nations or Congress or something like that, and she has this dress which is representation for CERN, obviously. But shall I show the pictures from Super Bowl and Eurovision later, so that later?
Yeah, sure.
Pardon me? Shall I show them now or later?
Either way. Okay, we'll save them for later because now I've interrupted your flow of thought. But remember, going back to, I mentioned 4 things related to the Illuminati that had caused me, they were clues to cause me sincere concern about CERN. Well, there's some other concerns, and that is reliable informants of the Illuminati have also told me about their false flags. And one of their major false flags, and they have put a lot of energy into this, and this is something that can even be documented and proven that this is in the works, is a mock alien invasion. So how would CERN come into this? Well, let's say that they said, oh, CERN has opened up a portal, it's opened up a Stargate, and now we're being invaded by the aliens. You know, that could be a method to create a fake alien invasion. Now, why do I say that that this would be fake. Well, I know that there's a lot of Christians that are concerned that they're going to bring demons and stuff in here, but according to the Word of God, which Christians are, that's their Bible, that they adhere to. Satan's realm is already here. It's this world. Well, it's not separate. The fallen ones are already here. Demons don't need a particle accelerator to manifest themselves. Fallen angels don't need a particle accelerator to manifest. However, that doesn't mean that I'm totally skeptical that there aren't other evil energies from these chaotic dimensions that want to come in. In fact, one informant said that's exactly what's happening, is that, we already have some evil entities here, but these are other critters being pulled in. So that's weird. But, these people obviously are blind to the dangers. And then it's like getting back to all you were mentioning Shiva, and the CERN logo is 666. I mean, they have all of this stuff, people that were workers at CERN have done some weird rituals. I mean, it's kind of bizarre. And shifting slightly, remember the Illuminati card game, and we've talked about this. I think we talked about this the last time. Was it the last time we did it, where we talked about the Illuminati card game and how they show the Hoover Dam being destroyed? But the old and new $50 bills in the United States also show the Hoover Dam being breached. And then, like, so many of us realize that the Hollywood movies and their video games are predictive programming. So MW3, Halo 4, Fallout 3, these are all video games where dams are being broken up, destroyed. Is this predictive programming? Well, if you look at what happened on 9/11, I mean, you can see a lot of programs showing the Twin Towers being taken down. And like in The Simpsons, they show the Twin Towers being hit by a plane and taken down. It's bizarre. So are we seeing predictive programming? Are they telling us ahead of time? Because there is a principle that it seems that they have to follow, where they need to have, in some form, even our unconscious consent to do something. So if you watch something on television and you accept it, that's taken as some kind of weird consent for them to do this stuff. So predictive programming, it plays a role in how they seem to want to function. So go ahead and show those things. This is a good point to jump in again.
Okay. I would also mention, I believe the chief now, or her name is Gianotti. They put like names that are of importance, giants. So they will open, so the giants will come here. So what I heard, yeah, it's just in the Eurovision, for example, they show portals, and also when some how you call these songs, which is winning the number code, they usually use the number code which means something. And I know the Illuminati use number 10, like the transition between our world order to the new world order, to this. So it was a song in 2015 that won, and it was number 10. The song number 10 won, and if you look at it, it's a Swedish pop singer, Måns Zelmerlöw. If you watch his the performance from the Eurovision that he has won, it's like about actually about a Nazi system that he describes. He describes something like George Orwell was talking about in 1984, and you see the portal, like CERN portal, and the color codes. So you can see that, and the Illuminati themselves in the YouTube channel Light Killers, which is theirs, they are saying Europe has no Super Bowl. Europe has Eurovision Song Contest. So if there is something needed to hide in a plain sight for Europeans, then at this Eurovision contest. So, and they are like another song which also talks actually about Hoover Dam, CERN-Hoover Dam event is the song Rise Like a Phoenix. If you watch the song from the Eurovision Song Contest and the explanation on Light Killers, which is the satanic Illuminati channel, then they explain for you how they were thinking when they were created the song. And they written, of course, the real truth is that the singer, he was predestined to win in situation like win a long time ahead, because he delivered one of the most important hidden messages ever. So people were fooled that it's some competition, but in fact he was meant to win by the Illuminati a long time ahead. So they are saying it themselves. And the song Rise Like a Phoenix, it was this man looking like Jesus with long hair, feminine clothing, and you can see him here. It's from the YouTube channel Light Killers, and they are, it's written here, electromagnetic reaction, something like an electromagnetic nuclear explosions. They are talking about the Hoover Dam, CERN-Hoover Dam attack, and they are advising you, listen to the song. It's heavily overdosed with hidden meanings, which will be explained after this video. So I don't advise you to watch Light Killers like something positive. It's very negative. And when I start to watch it, I'm aware of that it's very satanic. It can influence me negatively, but I have to watch it because if I want to help and prevent things, I believe you have to know. And there was also a false flag in Paris, and the leaders were filmed in a crowd. They were demonstrated their unity. It was the photo was then faked because there were no people there. But I knew that it was right before a false flag. They were about to open the CERN-Hoover Dam. So the leaders wanted to demonstrate their unity, so that if it happens, this fake alien or alien invasion, that they are united, but actually they are united together with them, not for our best. And then I have many other pictures about CERN, about good videos about CERN, but I save it. I just show two more. Here's your expression. Should we be concerned? The magnets used in the portal experiments are called S.A. Also Satan, Solar Action Telescope Antenna. Satan. It's like the telescope Lucifer, or the computer in Brussels, which name is Beast Computer. It's like they are telling you the name, and here does CERN headquarters symbol of Shiva dancing the cosmic dance of death and destruction signal the true purpose of CERN's existence. And the last is also from the YouTube channel Light Killers, Madonna's Super Bowl exposed. And it's here, those flames represent that the Holy Roman Empire army will come during World War III. And this is from Super Bowl explained by Light Killers themselves. So I have many other pictures, but yeah.
Oh, maybe we can do another show on some of this. Would you like to do another show where you could show some of the pictures?
Oh, Fritz, I would be probably behind bars already now by a fraud, but this fraud we have uncovered. So until 6th of December, I should be in court, and we have uncovered another fraud they were planning. So I would be behind bars, go directly behind bars on 6th of December, and listen to this. 6th of December, it's 6 plus 6, so it's 666. And for most of people, I'm nobody, and I don't consider myself anybody, but I was put in this position in 2013 against William Van Dau without knowing what is this, and I just do the best what I can do. But the same day as they were planning this court with, for them it meant something special for those evil people. The same day they will crown here, the prime minister will be crowned, so to speak, and this prime minister who is coming, he is one of them. So they have to have sacrifice. So I would appreciate if you have time, at least one more time before I maybe go to prison or be jailed on 6th of December if we cannot do something about it. And I would like to show you also when you were in Prague. So your lecture was on 9th of October. They were planning a false flag when we were there, and you know it maybe. And I can show you what it was, a celebration. It was 5 days after, was a worldwide premiere for a film. I want to show you that, and if we could talk about it shortly also. In Prague, what they were planning to do, I understood it later. But if you could have time, and maybe we could talk more about like numerology, CERN, different things, or if you pick some topics later, if you know something already now, so please say it.
Well, we'll do another show. I'm not exactly sure what we'll do because you've mentioned a number of things there, and maybe we'll do something that touches on a number of things that we haven't touched on already. I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to give a little bit, return us back to CERN and give the listeners just a little bit more insight on the kind of things that I've been discussing. There's a couple things that they're theorizing in physics connect us to other dimensions. One is gravity. They believe that gravity connects us to other dimensions. And then they also believe that dark matter connects us to other dimensions. So supposedly, according to one informant, they had actually gotten some dark matter in one of these American universities, and it was connected to some of these chaotic dimensions, and they were having a lot of problems in the area that they were keeping this dark matter. So anyway, that was an interesting report. You know, if somebody's wanting to know more about parallel universes, there's a Mikio Kaku wrote Parallel Worlds. That's the name of his book, Parallel Worlds, and he's taken some very complex subjects and put it into lay terms. So it's a good book for people to get a handle on the topic of these extra dimensions, these parallel universes, which we may have slipped into one that was really close, because this Mandela effect is, when you start looking at it, if somebody takes a sincere look, which I finally did, it really gets you thinking. For a long time, clear back in like 1990, 91, someone who knew a lot about the New World Order said, if one wanted to understand it, you had to understand how the Hopis were using their kivas. And even today, in secret, they're spiritual leaders of the Hopi and some of the other tribes down there in Arizona area. They're opening up portals, stargates, and communicating with these intelligences. And so there are stargates. I mean, Baal Hermon in the Bible was a stargate. You read about different stargates that angelic beings could come out of. So we know that there are stargates, and how that relates to what CERN is doing is an interesting question. Going back to the other universes, they would have different laws of physics than we do. You know, imagine the constants that you learned in physics class being different, or there not even being any constants. In our universe, we have an expanding universe, and there's, you know, and they've tried to understand that. They think that black holes, as well as gravity, and black holes are places of high gravity. They think that black holes, with their high levels of gravity, would be portals to other universes too. So I've just given you some of the things there that could connect us theoretically to other worlds, other dimensions. We know that, here's another thing that I learned from an insider, that her father, who was a Grand Master in the Illuminati, was interested in Apollyon, and Apollyon is like Abaddon the Destroyer, and from the Christian viewpoint, their word for it would be the Antichrist. And remember, the Antichrist is to come with all unrighteous deception. That's the prophecy, all unrighteous deception. So we're looking at an overlap between what CERN is dealing with and biblical prophecy too. And I know a lot of people go, oh, the Bible, well, don't mention that, because, you know, some people don't want to look at that. But I tell you what, that's ancient wisdom, and the ancient wisdom in the Bible is a lot more wiser than any of us. So it behooves us to look at the prophecies in there. And there's a reason why a lot of people are spiritually looking to the Word of God as to help them get direction in what's going on. And like you mentioned, the giants, and the Word of God talks about how in the end days there'll be a return of these Nephilim giants. So yeah, there's again, like, I seem to be itching on my face. If I even do a hand sign or scratch my face, there's always certain people say, "Oh, Fritz did some Illuminati hand sign." No, it's just sometimes my nose or my face itch, and I gotta itch it. So that's all that is, guys. Did you have anything else you wanted to bring in?
No, it was really very, very interesting, Fritz, and I know that time is getting very late in Las Vegas, where you live now. So I'm grateful that you say that we could talk at least one more time before I maybe go to jail. So it would be really great to continue our conversation.
Well, great. Let's do that. And I hope that that the listeners found this very interesting, and I hope that they look into these very suspicious things that we've been talking about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fritz, and good night.